So yeah, we are back. We missed last week, so we are going over episodes 3 and 4 of Miss Marvel. Smaller group this today. It's going to be just myself and Tony. So Mr. Marvelite and Superhero Talk, as you guys know us, and we're going to jump right into it. We got to go into episode 3, and we got to address the elephant in the room. So Tony, I want to hand it over to you. They talked about the Djinn and some of the backstory behind not only Kamala's heritage, but also uh, Kamran's mother, who made a big 180 in that episode. But her and her, I'm going to call them group that is trying to get back to their home. But it could be a problematic twist for a lot of people, especially in the Muslim faith.
Yeah. So first, I just want to preface this with the same thing as like I'm not Muslim, and so for me, this is based off of me being able to be quiet and listen to others' opinions. I think when you look at people like the Amira Review, Watch with Neves, Maria, people that have really, they live their faith, they live this culture or their culture, whether it's from the South Asian area or surrounding areas. It's always important when something is being represented to hear what people have to say of that group. And so I am not the authority of it, but it's been interesting having the conversation and letting the dialogue happen. I know that specifically Amira has gone out and has spoken as of last week that she plans on not continuing watching Miss Marvel, and that is a personal opinion, and it is not one that she is advocating for people to boycott the show, but she felt like the inclusion of Djinn were problematic and were disrespectful. And she wrote a fantastic quote that she gave me to add to the article that I just recently posted about this. But yes, and so you have beings that are part of the Muslim faith, and not just the Muslim faith, but kind of falls into belief systems in India, Asia, in the surrounding areas, and to take and give this concept that, oh, this religious figure is actually a superhero now in a comic book, and they're part of a group of individuals that obviously seem very bad. That Kamala is upset that she is associated with it, and not really giving proper background or respect is very problematic. I do believe, just like even Amira has said, it was even from last week, that it was a misdirect, that they threw that out there. And unfortunately, I don't believe that the writer for this episode was a person of the culture. And I don't know if there was much consultation. It's kind of surprising with having one of the co-creators and having so many people. Like, there wasn't anybody that kind of like snapped their fingers like, can we talk about this real quick? And again, it's the same thing. Amira is from a different region. It could possibly be that for South Asia, this is not a big concern. We already know that Disney has no issues touching on the topics of the Djinn, or as we like to call them in Aladdin, genies. They've taken on multiple forms. Genie is just one depiction of that, that historical belief. And again, it can be very problematic. And it's kind of like the way Amira had said it, which kind of really spoke with me, is it's like continuing to kind of like give Oriental stereotypes.
Yeah.
And for myself, I'm half Arabic. You would think, I have much of the culture. One of the things that kind of like really helped me identify with episode 4 is seeing Kamala excited as she saw more of her culture that was different from what she saw in Jersey. I always find it interesting to learn more about my culture, whether it's going into a family-owned restaurant that's Lebanese or whatever, and it's just exciting to realize that this is part of me, though I may not have grown up that way. I don't ever assume to take on this. I'm an Arabic guy. It's part of my heritage. It's in my name. It's in me, but again, I still am a very passively white guy. So it's always being very careful to be respectful to let other voices in. And unfortunately, it kind of just worked out today that we didn't have many people
I was
to
thinking
jump
that.
in with us. Yeah,
Yeah.
we love giving an opportunity, and it's always been great with all these videos that you've done, having actual voices that are representative of
Yeah.
the material to give that discussion. But 2 weeks not being able to do it, just having a discussion, and maybe it will start another discussion for another video.
Like, I appreciate the fact that when someone has an issue, that it should give even a company like Marvel pause, like major pause. And I think, and it wasn't just Amira too. Like, I think in reading the story that you wrote, and after you spoke to her, I wanted to get different angles, right? So I started to look, and there's a lot of people out there that are upset, and that really should give them pause, because that should be everyone's perspective with something like this. When you are addressing and you are bringing one of the few programs or things that can give representation to a typically either marginalized or just typically misrepresented community, yeah, I'm surprised by this, like very surprised. And I didn't know. And I also think that the amazing thing from this, and I felt it today, like, really diving into it and looking into it, is I didn't know all this stuff. And so now it makes a lot of sense. And I really hope there's a lot of other people like myself that are out there that are learning this along with me and have that open mindset to be like, okay, like, now I get it. And also, it's a little problematic, and I have hesitation. And to what Amira said, even if it is a red herring, which it might be, it's still a really unusual one to choose. And the last thing I will say about it is, and it only dawned on me as, again, I'm still kind of like digesting all of it as someone who has no experience, right? And as you were talking about it, and you said, I didn't even think about the fact that Kamran's mother is obviously, that we know 2 episodes in, we're in episode 4 now, they're bad, right? And it reminded me of what Amira said about, like, there's so many layers to it, but not all representation, because it's good, is good unless it's accurate. But at the same time, I feel like we've gone 2 steps back, where now you're not only taking a religious belief, but also it feels very archaic, where like, they did go with that, and then they have to go with it associated with this group of, what you can call them, villains. That just hit me when you were talking about it too, where I was like, oh yeah, they're bad too. So it's just a double whammy, I think, on all that account.
The discussion was also about depictions. If you see a Muslim character in TV, they're either a terrorist, or they're the surprise hero, or they're the ones that are being victimized. And it takes and this is just with any culture. It seems like in American media, it always takes a white knight to save them.
Yeah.
This takes me back to even like the movie Hidden Numbers. About the NASA. You had these strong Black women that were working in NASA, and they had all these problems. There was no Kevin Costner character like in real life.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing where he breaks the bathroom like sign down, and that didn't happen. They still struggled. Like stuff like that always bothered me, that it took that white person to come in and be the one to be the difference. No, they made the difference. And so, like, for me with Marvel, I always feel like what happens is, as much as this is this show has shown great representation, and it has shown a great picture of people that are of a different culture than maybe many of the primary audience, they're still catering to that audience, that white audience.
Yeah.
Because what pulls people in more than the deep dark secrets of their faith or their history, or it's like, people love Moon Knight because of the Egyptian mythology, because there's always been a fascination with Egyptian mythology because of the practices of like the death and burials, and the idea of these gods, and the conflict between them. You've got Norse mythology, Thor and Loki, the chaos and mischief and all this stuff going on between them, and they're the hidden secrets from Odin. And then you get into, and this is where I get frustrated as a Christian. Like you get into this concept. Everybody kept talking about, oh, it's Mephisto. The Mephisto is the devil in the MCU. And as much as I've loved Robbie Reyes as Ghost Rider and Age of the Shield, it's always problematic because there is no the devil sending out somebody to go, get those dark souls. Their demonology is even horribly depicted in media, and it just you sit there and you look and you're like, they have no concern
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
person's faith. And I think we're at a point now where it's like we should probably start leaning away from using religion as a source of plots, and just kind of go with like actual real life scenarios, or at least believable scenarios.
Yeah.
I think that's where it takes us into episode 4. Episode 4, we get a very passing like disregard of what was said in episode 3. So she's in with the Red Daggers, and the comment basically is made: if you had abilities and you were from this area, you would have been called Djinn too. It's basically saying they're not really Djinn; they've just accepted that title over time, because that's what people in the culture around them had associated them with. And that is, in my mind, that was a little bit better. But at the same time, it's kind of like, I get it. You go somewhere and maybe people just associate you with a specific thing. But honestly, like it just kind of didn't need to happen.
Yeah.
And and the thing was, it should have also been, if it was going to be mentioned in episode 3, it should have also been kind of dismissed in episode 3.
Yeah.
There's lots of great things.
Yeah.
Mir's wedding, the dancing, the action,
Oh yeah.
like the conflict. If they wouldn't have even brought up the Djinn, like just having like this ancient group of what they call, I guess they call themselves the Nor, and they're trying to get home, but you're starting to realize Aisha is not really part of them, and has somehow kind of betrayed them. And I think that's where we're getting at, because in episode 3, when she calls her, she's a traitor, or she betrayed them, she's attributing into Kamala what Aisha did to them.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot more there, and I think that was what I wanted to know about, but I didn't need the Djinn. So
like, as much as I love Marvel and we are so dedicated to everything that comes and the storylines and everything like that, I also don't want to see this kind of just like be drowned out. And like, I want to see something positive come about it, where and you can't make it right because it's a thing that's filmed, but like at least some kind of addressing of it. I mean, it feels a little, not similar, but I liked what Star Wars did with, and it wasn't their own doing, obviously, but with the whole Moses Ingram thing, coming out and supporting her and saying like, don't be that person. I kind of want to see something from Marvel being like, hey, if we made a mistake, and I mean, they probably don't want to give anything away, but I just don't want them to ignore this, is my feeling, because that would feel not great.
even to the point of where when they started seeing the reactions and saying, hey, we know that a lot of you are concerned for this. Please trust us. We are going to handle this delicately, if that was the case.
I guess the question is now, like, with where we leave off in episode 4, do we have hopes? What do we expect to move forward? Like, what are we thinking? I have a big question mark about where it's going and what we're thinking and what's going to happen. We did end, for those who haven't seen it or have seen it, I mean, we can put a spoiler at the beginning when we cut this, but for those we do end. It looks like she went back in time and she's actually in the time of partition and seeing these families be torn apart, which is, again, another heartbreaking thing. And also good that they're covering this.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we will find out more of the history and tradition. Will it make up, and will it do it the history justice, is, I guess, what remains to be seen.
Right. And I think it's also interesting, like, there was a lot of good things that happened in episode 4. I want to be mindful of that. First of all, there was great action. I liked how they're trying to expound on what Kamala's history is, or origins are, basically letting her know you're not Nor, you're not Djinn. You had a great interaction with the grandmother and the mother, which I think was good for it. Mind you, it reminded me a lot of Turning Red, for the fact that there's a struggle between the grandmother and the mother, and then there's the mother and the daughter, which I think is transcendent of any culture. I think everybody goes through those struggles when it comes to familial issues. But the kind of like we're seeing, it was a joke. We were watching the watch party last night, And I think it was Jonathan was talking about, like, are we going to get like one piece of her costume every single episode now? And it's like, she just like picks a piece up on along the way. And it seems like that.
Yeah.
But just kind of like seeing her like finally wearing her mask, and
Yeah.
the story between that, the action was very good. And yes, I'm very excited about the partition, being depicted. I think it's something that, again, a lot of people have not searched or have learned about it, because it's not something that's being taught, and it's not something that's being discussed. And unfortunately, in the United States, if it's American history, or if it's not American history, it's not history. And we get these basic things that we go over. And of course, Jonathan, in the watch party, loved the fact that they were eating Chinese food, and she's like, why is this so red? And he's like, and they go, what, have you whitewashed Chinese food in America too? And Jonathan just yelled out and goes, yes, you all have. And it was just those little identifying things.
Yeah. But I can say, as an outsider, someone, and hopefully other people are taking this path as well, these are things you want to learn about Djinn, about, the whitewashing of Chinese food, of anything in a culture, and then learning more about partition, and just wanting to, again, expand your horizons, expand your knowledge base. And to what Amir said that was great during her profile video, was where she's like, look, like, you don't have to humanize people of different cultures because they're already human, which I thought was amazing. Like, and that reminded me, I thought of that when they were sitting around the campfire, getting to know each other, playing music and whatnot. I'm just going to take that at face value. And that's something anybody can relate to, just enjoying the things of life, whatever it is. And her naivete about, like, oh, is it spicy and this and that. And then, like, that is, anyone can relate to. You don't have to make it Americanized. If that's, I hope that's actually how it is, in that part of the world. So you kind of get like an eyesight into other cultures. But yeah, there were some great things in there. And I thought the series overall has been really, really good. Yeah. I'm just hit with stuff that I didn't know. And I think the Djinn situation. And so I'm hoping that, there are some redeeming things that continue to happen, and overall ends up being a positive thing. I just don't know. And I don't, as someone who is also, like, again, not affected by that, you want to be mindful of what you think and what you say, and what, and try to be open-minded to not be bullheaded when it comes to that kind of stuff. So.
There are so many strong positives for the Miss Marvel series. First of all, Iman Vellani is the quintessential Kamala Khan. I could not imagine anybody else being in that role other than her. Yeah. Mind you, I'm the kind of guy that I played the Avengers video game. As bad as the reviews were, and as much as I really didn't like the mechanics, I played that whole game for the purpose of going through Kamala's story, because I just thought it was really well done. Until Miss Marvel, I think it was, we got to look at her Moss community, and building those relationships. The visuals are still constantly stunning. Episode 4, when she's on the airplane and she's trying to text Nakia's not responding to her, and how they use the window of the airplane, like, to show the text messages. I just love how even in those subtle ways they bring those things out. They bring to light the mind of Kamala. And again, like, people were saying at the beginning of the series, it's like a Disney Channel show, and so this is nothing like a Disney Channel show. With the exception of probably doing a good job of getting in Kamala's mind, everything else is like in MCU world, and the pacing has been better than, I think, the majority of all of the Marvel shows that we've gotten, with the exception of maybe WandaVision. I think WandaVision did a good job with pacing because, well, with the exception of to the end, I think they rushed the last episode. But it's always been, you get one episode, you're like, how in the world are they going to wrap this up? And with Nakia's relationship with Kamala being strained, with Bruno kind of pining for her, but not getting that reciprocation, and she's still kind of thinking about Kamran. It's like, it brings these thoughts of how are they going to wrap all this up. And the thing is, they don't have to. The Nakia relationship, the strained relationship between her and Nakia, the pining for Bruno, those are things that followed Kamala along in the comics. And they were buttoned up until, spoiler to the comics, the incursion, which was mentioned in Multiverse of Madness. And it was this idea that the world was coming to an end. Captain Marvel told Kamala. Kamala went to Nakia, made things right, went to Bruno. They professed their love for each other. And she said, but I want to focus on doing good to the end of time. And so she didn't have a real relationship with Bruno at the end. She just expressed her feelings. They shared that moment, and she went off and went to be Miss Marvel. And so it's important that we understand that not everything has to be buttoned up in this this season, or if there are other seasons, for this specific season, and this could bleed into the Marvels. Like I could immediately imagine, like Kamala has been like pursuing Nakia. She finally gets Nakia willing to talk to her. Like they'll meet at their favorite like little shop or whatever, and then of course she gets pulled off world, and Nakia is like upset and angry, and it just kind of expounds on the relationship that they're struggling with. So those things are those don't have to be resolved. But I think it has great pacing. The depiction of Karachi, seeing Kamala's eyes get big as she's seeing everything around her. I completely relate to that. I went a number of years ago, I went to Guadalajara, and it was like not knowing how to negotiate with money for certain things, like taxicabs negotiating, nothing was ever a set price. And if it was a set price, because you looked like you were American, the prices were always higher, and trying to barter people down, like that whole scene in the
that's culture. That's culture, right? Like, I mean, I've been to Spain, like Barcelona, like there's you don't tip, like, and that's a different thing too, where like it's almost an insult to some service people if you tip or whatever. But and again, it's just educating people on different cultures, no matter what it is. And it doesn't have to be religion, it doesn't have to be faith-based or whatever. It can be literally just how you live your daily life. And it's interesting to see, Spain, especially siesta, when people take those afternoon breaks as like, it's like a part of their culture, stores close from like 12 to 1 or whatever it is. Those are all super interesting things that if you haven't experienced them in person, it's nice to kind of see and learn. And these are like actual real things that happen around the world, and just kind of seeing the differences. I mean, it's really interesting.
Well, I honestly feel like we're going to actually, to the point of where Kamala's mom finds out that she is this powered being and everything else. I think when she finds out that the crazy talk that her mother has been, putting out all this time was true. I think at the incursion, when Kamala had a conversation with her mom just said that she was proud of her for being willing to do good for her people and for those around her, being self-sacrificial. There's that thing. And right now you look at this, you're looking at this mother, and as a dad, I kind of understand, when your kid does things that look selfish and you didn't raise them that way, and you're kind of trying to figure out what to do, there is a level of disappointment. I mean, there are times where my kid would be scared of me because of how I respond to something, and it's because I'm putting up an act. Because if I were to really express my feelings for him, I'd be like, "Oh, buddy, I'm so it's okay. You can do better next time." But sometimes he needs to understand that, dad's upset, dad's not happy. Mind you, inside, I'm like, weeping because I don't want to be angry at him, but I have to be. Now,
it's for his own good. Obviously. Yeah.
Now, there are bad parents out there that are just angry all the time and selfish, but there are also parents out there that they put up this strong front, this demeanor, so their kids understand there are consequences for their actions, and you're visually showing them that there's a reaction to it. But again, at the same time, you want to go turn around and hug them the next moment. She was just given an improper light in that first episode, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to kind of put the ellipsis on and be like, all right, to be continued. We'll find out next week, where this is going, what the next steps are. I also want to learn more about the Department of Damage Control and their involvement. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack and to keep watching. And I am excited to see the final 2 episodes. It's very important to make that clear. And we'll just see where we're going from there.
Absolutely.